Let us begin. What would you like to begin?
I don't know. I like that shirt.
Thank you.
Do you want to pull cards? Do you want to? I don't know if we want to start there. We might get soul forgiveness again and then have.
I was like, I'm not pulling from this deck ever again.
Oh.
Yeah, let's pull cards. I'll pull some cards. I'll crack up if it's like forgiveness.
No, I was like, they're going to say what he wants to say. Okay? Can't hinder me.
Ooh, you know what card deck I have not pulled from for the podcast is Alchemy Elementals.
Yes, we have.
We have?
Earlier, yes, we did. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Spirit of Love and Light, what message do you have for us today to collect sacred purpose?
Ooh.
Eternal flame, ancestral legacy. Hold on. Okay. What is it that you want us to know about our sacred purpose? What do we need to know? What is the message here? That our purpose is ever flowing. That our beingness is our purpose. There are new beginnings happening within our sacred purpose. There's something new growing here. What else do we need to know?
You know, this kind of reminds me of the conversation that I was telling you about yesterday, about the post that I saw of the individual who was talking about how they, at the moment, were, I don't want to say lamenting, but they were mourning a change in career. Yeah.
Mourning.
Yeah.
A change in career. Yeah.
Yeah. And I thought it was such a good post. And they were talking about how they, spent all of their time really focusing on going into ministry. And now they have come to terms with and understand that that will not be a part of their career path and that they are leaning into this new career path. And they were inquiring whether or not anybody else has ever experienced this. And of course, in my mind, I'm like, lots of people have experienced this. I mean, I can imagine there's tons of people who have gone to school for a certain thing and thought that that was going to be their job and then find themselves in a different space. So that was my first thought. And then my second thought was ministry is really about service to humanity.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't see that as a career. I see that as a calling.
Mm-hmm.
And a calling isn't something that you ever have to mourn or that you ever have to give up. A calling is something that you bring with you everywhere that you are. I wanted to kind of share that on their post, but I haven't really been in contact with them in a long time. And a lot of people were kind of having the same sentiment and sharing words of encouragement to them. And maybe I'll reach out to them later on. But I thought this is a really interesting conversation because I think both of us have maybe not experienced that, but I'll speak for myself. I'm not doing what I went to school for necessarily, but I see that my calling pulled me to all the places that I've been in order to gain the tools that I need to be in my calling.
Yeah.
Yeah.
For sure. I also have the world upside down, which speaks to what you were saying. It's we can feel a shift in career, a shift in our path, a pivot that we need to make for X, Y, and Z can feel like our world is being turned upside down, but it's actually working for us. We're not supposed to stay the same in this incarnation. We are here to grow. We're here to evolve. I started off with dancing. And I'm not dancing now in that way, but dance is a healing modality that is a part of my work now. And I moved from dance to Pilates, and I still that intuitiveness around the body is still being used to this day, but I'm no longer teaching Pilates. And then from Pilates, I went to health coaching. And from health coaching, I went to mindset, NLP, energetic things. And then from that place, I went to priestessing. And so I too have been like, how do I put all these things together? And it can feel like, wow, I spent so much time, effort, money on these other things.
Mhm.
And, you know, we would want to see that we're using those things to the best and fullness that we can, but still not having the perspective. Like this card is upside down. She's grieving. And if she had a shift in perspective, I feel like she wouldn't be grieving. She would see like, oh, this is an opportunity
Mhm.
to offer something new, to offer something creative, to offer something that this world wants, just, you know, the way that I can give it. And though the history and the experience that I have can come into the right now moment and birth something that no one else can birth the way
Yeah.
that I can birth it.
Yes. Yes.
Like that gave me chills.
As it should, as it should. You know, one of the things that I know to be true is that we are, there is a plan for our journey here in life. And I think in a lot of ways, we don't know all of what's going to happen. Right now, I'm seeing like a butterfly, right? Like
Mhm.
this butterfly has these imaginal cells in its body, and it's like a ticking time bomb for when it's time to go into the transformation process to become a butterfly. And it may not know what's happening along the process, but all of it was divinely timed and inspired and is a part of the process. And maybe if you explained, well, you're going to have to do this and do this and do this, we wouldn't necessarily do it, right? Like we would be like, well, that doesn't make sense, not understanding the higher perspective of what we're gaining in all the places that we're called to. I've always felt like I'm not meant to work for anybody else. Like I've always felt that from a young kid. I wanted to be an actor. I wanted to be an actor. I wanted to entertain people. And so I went away to college and I tried to do the backup method first and started in journalism and quickly was like, this is not for me. I can't do this. I'm gonna do theater and speech. That's what I my degree is in. And then after that, well, I had a series of events. I had a baby, and so there was a whole lot of things that kept me from going that route. So I became a mother and did paralegal work. Like there's all of these random things that I feel like I've done. I worked in the ministry. I did youth ministry and seniors ministry, and all of these things were really about coordinating people, creating things to bring people together. I see that now, right? But in the moment it was just like, yeah, I'm just doing this job because this is what I can get paid to do right now. And then I got married and moved away and didn't work, but then I did some theater teaching. Like, okay, I brought the theater back, right? Did a lot of community theater and but have always had this passion for bringing people together. I can see all of the things that I have done and I see how they're the amalgamation of who I am right now and what skills I got from each of these places and how it bulks up, how it supports the thing that I'm called to do and be in the world.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think a lot of times we get focused on career because that is the physical way of doing things, right? And we
Mm-hmm.
don't necessarily think about our spiritual purpose. We know our physical purpose is to go to school, get married, have kids, put into the 401k, work, 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 retire, die. Like that's that is the roadmap. You know, have
Mm-hmm.
a little fun in between, and I remember being like, that doesn't make sense to me. That doesn't make sense. There's got to be more to life. And it really is about how do we balance the physical path with the spiritual understanding and knowing of why we're here.
Mm-hmm.
So our calling can be something very profound, and we can be in a career that doesn't feel like it meets that profoundness of our being. But that's an opportunity for us to bring, not mourn, but to bring that profoundness in all the places that we go.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I think even like the perception of what is profound, like we can think of that profound
Mm.
as like being on a really big stage and being famous and having all the resource of a lot of people's attention. What is also profound is nurturing one person
Mm-hmm.
who could be that person who is on a big stage,
Yeah.
or who ends up nurturing someone else who has a maybe not a huge stage, but a smaller stage. And a stage can be anything, some type of platform, some type of influence. It doesn't have to be like a physical stage. You know, like sometimes we can. I remember a time feeling like I'm not doing a whole lot because I'm just a stay-at-home mom. Like I needed to prove my worth. By the way, this is still something that I deal with. And
Don't we all?
so,
Don't we all?
but missing like the beauty in being one of the main providers and nurturers of three human beings, and recognizing that, wow, this is profound in my lineage. Like I'm parenting in a way that I was not parented. And so this is a huge shift. How does that shift how they parent their kids if they have kids? And then so on and so forth. I have that knowing that I am here to, I don't want to say break generational curses, because but to shift the direction of my lineage.
Bring generational healing.
Bring generational healing. Yes.
Mm-hmm. Because it's forward and
Yes.
it's
Yes. You
you're in
caught what I
here.
was about to do.
Yeah.
Yes.
And we turn it into a dance. Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think we do have knowings about why we're here, the things that kind of feel compelling to us. And we could have like an idea of what that looks like when we're smaller or younger, and then it begins to shift. But is that same essence in the thing that you're doing now? Yeah.
Yeah. I love that awareness of this word profound can mean a certain thing, like just like success can mean a certain thing. And when I think of profound, I think of impact. Like how are you shifting things? Like, and it doesn't have to be, like you said, this big thing, but there's this butterfly effect, right? Oh, butterflies are coming up a lot. Okay.
And they're
You know,
behind you.
yeah, they are. Butterflies follow me wherever I go. Um, but that actually that's a theme of my life. Like in 2006, I started a nonprofit organization because I wanted to work with young girls, and I was a young girl at one point, and I was affected by how the world promotes a certain beauty standard, and I was affected by, magazines preying on our insecurities as young girls, and there were a lot of things that I learned and that I had to overcome on my own. And I wanted to start an organization to support young women, and that the butterfly was actually the logo for Girls Like Us Incorporated. And I did workshops, and I mentored young girls, and I had fundraisers, and we had a walk, and I was doing this on a very small scale. But I see now again how that was all a part of this healing work for women, because I had that vision too at that time of how do I do this for women as well. I was still a very young woman, 26 years old. Like I don't know that I had lived enough of life to relate to women who were older than me. But now at the tenderoni age of 44, I feel like there's so much more wisdom that I have to offer and to share, and compassion that I've grown and expanded in just living life. And then I can see how all of the places that I've been, I've brought that. And so, how do we see the profoundness of our being throughout the course of our life first? That is important to see how it was always in us. There's something that's always in us, moving us towards being impactful in what we're being called to do.
Mm-hmm.
So that was the first thing that came to mind when you were talking about profound and defining it in a way that's like, yeah, like me being here and raising these children in a way that's very intentional and thoughtful and healing and nurturing. What what change is that making in the world?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
We are
Yeah.
raising humans to go into the world and be a light. That's so
Mm-hmm.
important.
Very.
That's so impactful. That's so profound. And so nobody's just anything.
Mm-hmm.
There's a purpose, a reason for our being. And I think when we get in touch with ourselves and we go inward and we find that purpose, there is no need to mourn what we're doing or not doing.
Mm-hmm.
We are able to, what is that, the Ace of Pentacles?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
You pulled that card for me yesterday too.
Mm-hmm.
But it's got that bright gold, that yellow, and it's like knowing who we are, being confident in that, knowing that who we are is a seed that has been planted here for a purpose.
Mm-hmm.
And that as we nurture ourselves, as we nurture our own hearts and nurture our knowing around, I'm here for a purpose and a reason, and I get to bring that into the world. Those roots begin to take root in all
Mm-hmm.
the places that we exist.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and so I think that's a beautiful message that people really can lean into when we're feeling discouraged, when we're feeling the need to mourn. Um, so yeah,
Yeah, for sure.
what's happening
I
over there?
I am like getting so emotional right
I
now
see.
because I'm thinking about like how a lot of the times we can equate our purpose to doing and
Hmm.
not being. And I'm thinking about how us being here, us being present, is a gift. And it took me back to my husband's mom, who was, we were doing hospice, in-home hospice, and she's on her deathbed. I don't even like this, but like her ministry bed, I would say, because she was laying there. She wasn't really talking to us, but like I was learning, I was expanding, I was growing just from her being here and me needing to interact with her and help my husband. Like, and I remember thinking like, wow, she has profound purpose
Hmm.
at the end of her life. Like
Hmm.
how I remember growing like tremendously, like surprising myself with like how much I could take and how much I could hold and how much I could handle and how grounded I could be for my husband and my kids and for myself, and then making sure that I was going through therapy so that I had some support. Like, and our purpose is to be. Our
Hmm.
purpose, like us being here, if we were not here, that ripple would not be here. The ripple of our energy would not be in the world.
Yeah.
I kind of want to take that back because I feel like her ripple is still here, but she's been here, you know, her mark is still on me.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
I so I love that you brought this up because I remember watching you during that time and being like, I don't know how she does that. Like for real, I remember being like, I I couldn't do that.
I was
And I
changing
but
3 diapers.
yes. Even like in my mind, and this is going to sound so terrible of me, but I was like, and it's not even her mom. Like it's, you know what I mean? It's something
Mm-hmm.
different when it's your parent, I think. And the realization that I had as you were talking about that was how you were bringing unconditional love, the thing that you are called to do and be in the world, like how you brought that to that situation and how she was a conduit of bringing that forward in you. So yes, you have doing that. I was going to say having to do that. You getting to do that.
Yeah, it was a gift.
And you saying yes was you stepping into your divine purpose even more.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now I'm just gonna go somewhere and cry.
Oh. What I'm hearing you say from that, every single person has a divine purpose. And half of the time, we don't even know what it is. We
Nope.
think because they're standing on a stage in front of thousands of people, or because they have a certain amount of money, that means that they're worthy of something, and that they have more value. This is something I know to be true. Every single one of us has equal value, and every single one of us needs to be here for a reason and a purpose. When we understand that as humans, we're going to live so much differently, and it's going to transform how we see ourselves and how we see one another and how we interact with one another. We will be better to one another. Everyone's needs will be met. Everyone will feel safe, seen, and celebrated. And when that happens, there's nothing that we can't do as a
Right.
humanity. There's nothing that we can't overcome or accomplish when we recognize, like, even the person on, who is, I don't know, I don't want to say this, but this is what's coming up. The person that's begging on the street, like, they have a purpose. And we need to, I think we need to kind of pull the wool from our eyes and, like, begin to see things from the spiritual uh lens of, how is this person impacting my life for the better? What can I do to impact another person's life? What am I here to bring? What are they here to bring? How can I make sure that I'm valuing them as an individual and that I'm bringing the thing that I'm here to be everywhere that I go? That was a
Mm-hmm.
lot, but that's all the things that are
Yeah.
going on in my mind around this. Yeah.
Yeah. I see that person as having multiple purposes. There's a mirror held up to me. There's a mirror held up to them. There's a mirror held up to the people that they might closely interact with.
Yeah.
It's not like a purpose. When we say sacred purpose, it's not just one thing.
Yeah.
And as a matter of fact, on this card, it has eternal flame, which to
Mm-hmm.
me, like, the ripple effect lives on
Yeah.
forever, and ancestral legacy.
Mm-hmm.
It's not just for us, it's for our lineage,
Mm-hmm.
our
Yeah.
spiritual lineage and our physical lineage.
Mm-hmm. I'm getting, okay, so I think I'm understanding why I was talking about the person on the street. Um, and I think it's like sometimes we think of those people as, like, too far gone or not worthy. And, like, when we recognize and remember that everyone has divine purpose, we're going to be curious about what that person is here to bring, and we see them more importantly than someone who we don't want to look at or we prejudge or something like that. And I think that's why that came up, because I'm actually, like, seeing somebody in a specific place. I wonder if I'm going to see somebody today in that specific place, right? But um how can we approach everyone as this beautiful gift that they may not see themselves as, but we know that they are? Yeah.
Yeah, I remember kind of a profound shift, that, like, perspective that I had when I was listening to Shaman Durek. I feel like this was like back in 2020, and he was talking about unhoused people and how we can judge them. And He was saying that, when we judge them, we are not realizing that the human condition lives in all of us. And that if we had the same situation, the same background, the same upbringing, the same way of thinking, then we too would be in that situation. So we were having technical difficulties, hence why I have headphones on now. Okay,
Yeah.
proceed.
I think we sometimes judge other people from our own place of being, right? And what that does is elevates us and puts them in a place of a judgment from a place that we don't know. There's that. And then there's also this lack of awareness for the diversity of experience. What am I trying to say? What I'm trying to say is not every unhoused person, not every person who is on the side of the road has the same story. I don't believe that anybody should experience the hardship of being unhoused. I think there's plenty in this world for us to share, and those types of things are a result of us not seeing the value in all human beings and making sure that everybody has their social and physical and their emotional needs met. So I see those things as a fault of society, that there's people that we're not seeing. There's people that we are not meeting their unique needs. Uh, and so I even kind of hesitate to say, oh, well, I might be in that very position where I could be, right? But that's an assumption of what has them there. And I think that when we think that people are in a bad situation because of something that they've done, and not necessarily because society hasn't seen everyone as valuable and necessary and sacred. So yeah, it's like two ways to look at that issue of like, yes, it could be us because any situation or circumstance could put us there. And how do we collectively care and know that every human being has a purpose, that they need to feel safe and they need to feel connected to themselves and see their value in order to live out that purpose? And what is our role as fellow travelers and human beings here in the world to make that so everyone what they need? That feels like a big responsibility in some ways, but it also is like, what can we do as an individual? That was just a thought that came up around that.
Yeah, it's beautiful. I think that it is a great question to ponder on. Something came to mind when you asked that question, and there's this service, Too Good to Go. That's the app, and you can sign up to get like a blind bag of groceries or anything like from a restaurant that they might be throwing out, but you can get it for like a lower amount.
Hmm.
And I remember thinking like, why are they not giving this to like people who actually need it?
Hmm.
And I think you said that, and then even my husband said that. And sometimes we can put that responsibility on other people, and then it's like, well, I could get this and give it to somebody else who needs
Yeah.
it too.
Yeah.
Like that came up to me of like, so often we can project the responsibility onto somebody else
Hmm.
instead of asking ourselves, like, what is here for me to do?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah.
I was just thinking, as you were talking about that, I was thinking about there's this beautiful soul. I don't know her name. She is on the internet and she started her own nonprofit. This is her purpose. And she serves unhoused people. They come to her truck and she asks them, do you need a blanket? Do you need water? And she's out there consistently. And the way that she loves on these people is just so beautiful. And sometimes she gets people who are rude and nasty, right? But she stays in this place of service. Like I see her as someone who is here to serve, someone who is here to see people who are usually unseen or people don't want to see. And I think about like, what gifts do we have to offer? That's not everybody's like If we all had the same calling, there we'd all be doing the same thing. And there would be so many things that were missed. But like, what's our calling and how do we align that? Ooh, hold on. Ancestral, eternal flame.
Mm-hmm.
How do we see that as a service to ourself and our lineage, but like this eternal flame throughout humanity? An eternal flame is like this hope, is this light that never goes out. You're an eternal flame. Your purpose is eternal, and it shines brightly in the dead of night, and it shines brightly during the beaming sun during the day. Like that's who we are called to be. Consistent, aligned, celestial alignment is the card I just saw in my head. How can we dive deeper into that without the, because I can feel myself, I'm one of those people who's like, swing all the way to this pendulum, swing all the way there, right? Right. Without the pressure to do as opposed to be. I knew someone, they were a mentor, and they, were in, their calling was service. I believe that their calling was hospitality. They were an amazing host. They always fed you when you came over to their house. They would make you tea. Like you just felt so at home. And they also did it in a way that was like, well, this is what I'm supposed to do. Gotta suffer for it. It became a suffering for them as well. Like it was like this burden that they had to carry. And like they're saying was like, I'll sleep when I die. Like it was, it was just like, gotta suffer for Jesus. Like that was their thing. And it's like, how can we do it without that energy of like, I have to suffer or I have to sacrifice myself in order? And I think that's around the doing part when we're so focused on the doing as opposed to just showing up and being. Like,
Well, I think it comes from this place of like feeling like that's how we prove our value. This
yeah,
is how we prove our worth. This is how I know that I am a beneficial presence to this planet if I do this,
yeah,
instead of seeing it how, like, okay, let me make sure that I'm giving from my abundant place,
yeah,
giving from my overflow. And so that's giving from a place of lack to be filled with recognition, whether from self, outside, to be filled with validation, right? Instead of feeling validated, feeling recognized, and recognizing that I am an abundant being and I have abundance and I have enough to go around.
yeah.
That's a different energy.
Energy. Yes.
And so in society, we have been programmed in some places and spaces and organizations and whatnot to feel that it's a bad thing to receive.
Yeah.
And so my worth comes from me giving.
Yeah.
And that's when we fall into over giving and under receiving and being undernourished.
Yeah.
And then there's resentment.
Yes.
But if we flip the perspective, make sure our needs are tended to first, putting on the oxygen mask first,
Mhm.
and giving from that abundant place, it will have a whole different frequency and energy
Yeah.
on it.
Yes. Yes. So it's so interesting because we're touching on a lot of things that we've touched on last week, coming into this week.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm reminded of some cards that I pulled. And the card was compassion, and the other one was the hunt. And the way that it was like, bring compassion to the thing that you do, right? So when I was thinking about the hunt, and again, this goes right to this frequency in which we do something. When we're hunting from a place of compassion and a place of abundance, we are not hunting everything in sight. We're going for what we need for the day because that is all that we need. We know that we're abundant. We know that there's going to be something there tomorrow to feed us. And so when we go into this, we go into this process, one with nature, right? In compassion, understanding and appreciating the sacrifice of the animal that will feed us. We're not doing this to mount antlers. And I'm not judging anybody who mounts antlers. I'm just saying that's the vision that I'm getting right now. We're not doing this to have antlers across of our room, right? We're doing this to feed ourselves, to sustain ourselves. And we know that because we're abundant, we don't have to worry about hoarding up, right? But when we do it without compassion, when we hunt without compassion, we are disconnected. We are in a place of scarcity. And because we're in the mindset of scarcity, we feel the need to just keep hunting, stack it up, right? And or again, not judgment towards anybody, but if you feel something, maybe it's something to look at, hunting for fun. Like is that understanding our interconnectedness with nature, with all things? Um, and so remember to bring compassion to your work. That's how I'm kind of saying, because a hunter is a hunter. That we have, if there's people who eat meat, we eat meat, right? There's people who have to, do that thing, right? But how can we make sure that we're bringing compassion into our work? That we're bringing our abundant nature into our work, that we are not living in a place of scarcity or of lack and of separation in our work. Um, and also relating that to how we just show up in the world. How can we stay in the abundant nature? How can we stay in oneness? How can we stay in compassion um, for all things? So that's just what came up for me while you were sharing that.
Beautiful. As you were sharing, I was like, where did we lose compassion? And I feel like we lost compassion when we were disconnected from the earth. When
Mm,
we, like, if we think of the earth itself is abundant.
yeah.
Um, the earth is ever giving to us.
Hmm.
And how do we give back to the earth? Do we even think about the relationship that we have with the earth
Hmm.
that holds us
Yeah.
day to day?
It is us.
It is us.
It
We're
is.
not separate,
Yeah.
you know? And there's a difference in hunting and thanking the animal for the
Hmm.
gift that
Hmm.
it is versus like slaughter, 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 slaughter. Like,
Yeah. Yeah.
and right now, like I'm thinking about it, man, it's so hard to, feels kind of hard to get to that place from where we are now.
Hmm.
And, it only takes one step that leads to the next, that leads to the next. And in 5, 10 years, things could be different.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it's about us practicing that knowing we're spiritual beings having a physical our incarnation, and our actions are often, I will say most often, directed by our emotions. And so, how do we practice this on a mental level, that we are all connected, that we are one with this planet? How do we do that emotionally as well? Because sometimes we can feel like, hey, I'm one, okay, yeah, I'm one with the planet, I live on the planet, but I'm not really thinking about this water here, or how drilling here might be a problem for the planet, which is in turn a problem for me. Um, or, how this person not being able to have their basic needs met as a human does affect me as a human, right? Like we emotionally kind of disconnect because of our feelings of scarcity. Like I think we
Mm-hmm.
still live in that scarcity mindset of there's not enough, there's not enough, there's not enough.
Mm-hmm.
More, 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 more. Like we have to accumulate, we have to consume, right? And so I do think it's this practice of us slowing down, this practice of us feeling our connection with all things, seeing our connection with all things, connecting our emotions to feeling, right? Like sometimes we don't want to look at stuff because we don't want to feel it, but
Mm-hmm.
we gotta
Yeah.
feel it. So changing our mindset, working with our emotions, and knowing that as our emotions shift, it's going to cause us to have to practice something different. So it's not just about knowing or thinking about it. We have to practice it emotionally, mentally, and physically. And that is what I think those of us who are light workers, those of us who are understanding this unity consciousness, oneness consciousness, we have to do that. We have to be the first.
Mm-hmm.
I'm also hearing like without judgment when other people aren't doing it, right? Like because
Yeah.
then that can cause us to say, well, why should I do it? If they're not going
Mm-hmm.
to do it, it's not going to make a difference. We absolutely make a difference. We
Mm-hmm.
talked about that, how one
Mm-hmm.
person can make a profound difference in the life of people around them.
Yeah.
And so I think it's really about us being that eternal flame, healing generations, right?
Ooh, yes.
Um, so yeah, it's an encouragement to us
Yeah.
that we have work to do still.
Mm-hmm. For sure. Yay.
Yay!
That was so cool.
I was.
How that just like you had the thought to think of talk about this, and then Spirit's like, yes,
Yep. Come
let's
on,
talk about it.
come on down. Let's talk about it.
I love it.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Thank you.
Thank you. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and become a part of our growing community. Until next time.